Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. It's kind of weird how you can like a character in one medium, but not another. And sometimes that depends on which medium you're introduced to first.
For example, I thoroughly enjoyed the X-Men animated series and thought Gambit was a fun enough character. His appearances in subsequent X-Men cartoons were also pretty good, but for some reason, once I got into reading the comics more frequently, any enjoyment I got from Remy LeBeau's involvement eventually withered away. Sure, I could blame that on bad writing, but even under better writers, I just stopped caring about him. Can't exactly explain why.
Even to the point that I find the idea of the Ragin Cajun getting his own solo movie to be laughably absurd. But perhaps I need to reacquaint myself with the character's earlier adventures. In that spirit, we start taking issue with the 4-part miniseries from 1993, written by Howard Mackie, with art by Lee Weeks, Klaus Janson, and Steve Buccellato. Let's open up Gambit number 1 and see if this story makes us want to turn the page or turn our heads. I guarantee! Where'd that come from?
The cover is sufficiently flashy to grab a curious reader's attention. The titular character embossed on the top, whilst throwing his trademark cars, though perhaps a bit diminutive compared to his name outlined in gold-colored foil, and the captions at the bottom note that he has his own limited series, At Last.
The classic tactic of putting that little stinger on the cover to denote a sense of urgency among fans who've wanted this ever since Gambit's first appearance 3 years earlier in Uncanny X-Men 266. But it's more of a marketing thing, so the number of fans who were actually anticipating something like this could have ranged anywhere between who cares and, really, a Gambit series?
We begin on the streets of New Orleans, where narration tells of a local legend mothers tell their children to keep them in line, that of the tithe collector. As a well-dressed man with a cane and small satchel walks through the fog, interrupting two men from accosting a woman, narration continues that after 7 years, it's time for another business transaction. Seriously, dude, no need for euphemism, just go to the bathroom. The two men figure the dapper-looking chap must be said collector, and knowing it would be fatal to interfere with his tithing, they decide that guild business is imminent, and they'd best stay off the streets until it's settled. That's when a lithe figure in black garb grabs them from behind, and the men are quickly lying in pools of beef gravy? What? Anyway, the killer, his claws capped with blood, says out loud this is the way of the Assassin's Guild, who will receive the tithe collector's gift once all the Thieves Guild families are dead.
Wow. Underworld's secret Santa pools are brutal.
We jump to the Xavier School's danger room, where Gambit and Rogue are being pushed to their furthest limits of their mutant skills. This apparently results in Rogue being restrained by tendrils in a provocative pose I have far too much class to go blue over. Not even X-Men blue.
Hey, that joke is more layered than you think.
Though she says she doesn't need or want his help, Gambit throws explosive cards at what look like two metal apparatuses about to smash her. He flirts about being open to a thank you candlelit dinner, but she tells him to watch his mouth and his own back. A mysterious figure waits outside, narration telling us, for the right time to infiltrate the mansion, and how a team of superpowered people would be unable to stop him even if they knew of his presence. Well, a lot of confidence you seem to have there for the Children of the Atom narrator. Meanwhile, Storm increases the danger room's intensity, and stogie-smoking Wolverine asks if they're pushing their luck trying to prove the pair can cut it on the team. He finds it cold, but Ororo finds it necessary.
As a team leader, it makes sense that Storm would want to test out her cohorts, but personally I find it a little weird that Wolverine, who is more gruff and somewhat cold at this point than he has been in recent years, is expressing concern over unresolved romantic statuses. Not to mention, he's constantly got a certain red-haired telepath on his brain.
As narration gives a glowing account of the bald strangers circumventing the X-Mansion security, Rogue becomes a little frustrated with Gambit's lack of seriousness in the danger room. He dodges some missiles that turn right back towards him. Wolvie prevents Aurora from shutting down the exercise, since these are the kind of combat conditions she wanted to test them in. And maybe he just wants to see him explode. Only after Rogue pushes her teammate to safety does the sequence end, and the two are briefly on the ground, with Remy in the enviable embrace of the Southern powerhouse, but he somehow knows they have company and takes off. An irritated Rogue strikes the ground, I guess not aware she can do better, vampire skin or no, while Remy manages to sneak up on the previously undetected intruder, threatening him with a charged card, though his tune changes once he recognizes his brother from the Thieves Guild, Henri. The other three X-Men arrive, wanting to know how their unexpected guest managed to get by their electronic defenses and two resident telepaths, but LeBeau simply gives the lame excuse of how everyone has their secrets. I want to know why your glowing green rock can sap my powers and kill me. Now, Superman, we all have our secrets. Okay, fair enough. Also note the not-so-subtle butt shot of Rogue. Not the classiest maneuver, but in the 90s there was way worse. Anyway, Henri mentions that it's tithing time, and ever since Remy's last trip to his hometown, peace between the guilds has fractured, namely by Julian, Gambit's brother-in-law, whom he saw die. But not all things are as they seem, as they say. For example, Henri himself used to be alive until he takes an arrow to the chest. His dying words are for his guild brother to return home, use his knowledge of their assassin rivals against them. Even though he believes this knowledge died with his wife Belladonna, Remy agrees to take Henri home. Wolvie catches the scent of two people heading to Salem Center, but Gambit stops him from giving pursuit. This is family business and he needs to do it alone. The Knucklehead seems to agree, as he stops Rogue from joining in the chase, as it's a blood debt, and he pities those on the receiving end.
What's the worst Remy can do? Show them that ludicrous fight scene between you two in X-Men Origins Wolverine? On the other hand, that would be very, very cruel.
In a chamber below the streets of New Orleans, the Thieves' High Council is preparing for a ceremony for the tithe collector of their benefactress, with all their families arriving with tributes in exchange for the elixir. Jean-Luc recommends that Remy be allowed to partake this year, but is met with some opposition for the mutant's brashness and not technically being among them. There's even doubt that he's gonna show up at all. That's when we jump to Paris and a woman named Kandra, an external gifted with long life. She's joined on the balcony by a man named Gideon, confirming things are going as planned, as usual, but she wouldn't mind a little excitement. You know, shake things up in their longer-than-average existence. And we jump back to Salem Center, where Gambit continues his hunt of his brother's killers, not ready to die until he gets answers for the destruction of the peace he sacrificed much to uphold. After throwing a charged stick, the assassins take refuge inside a nearby building, its heavy-duty lock being less of a challenge to someone who can detonate a toothpick inside.
Now that's just too easy. I had to work and train to be good as I am at picking locks. In Skyrim. That counts, right?
Look at Gambit here. Those black eyes dotted with red and that crazy freaking hair. It's amazing this didn't give me more nightmares as a kid. Anyway, we make a brief stop back at the X Mansion, where Rogue confesses that she loves Gambit, and after Logan reiterates that the Cajun has to go on this mission solo, she should stay by him when it's finished. Best not to wait for the perfect conditions when they rarely ever occur for mutants. Back to LeBeau. He's lurking through the warehouse, taunting his targets until they try a sneak attack and reveal there are several more of them. After a card pun and an explosive volley, the X-Man declares how he wants them to see the hits coming, like Henri never did. An applause from the shadows reveals the dark figure from earlier in the issue, saying the mutant still fights more like an assassin. Gambit recognizes the voice as the aforementioned Julian, and however he came back, their dialogue suggests he died in a duel with Remy, and the latter isn't interested in repeating history, knocking a foil from the figure's hand and sweeping his face mask with it. Less than giddy about possibly losing his honor, Again, Julian lunges at LeBeau, only to get impaled, but he assures that he ain't dying anytime soon. The assassins take their leave via portal they somehow have, I'm not sure, it's not explained, with Julian's departing words expositing that after years of assassins having the power and thieves having the life, the killers intend to have both. He also mentions having kept the Belladonna alive, and Gambit should stay out of the Big Easy, lest he die with the rest of his clan.
In-laws, am I right, folks? Seriously, am I right?
Remy's returned to the mansion and told Rogue, Wolverine, Storm, and now Professor Xavier that Belladonna is alive, which they all find hard to believe since they saw her die in X-Men number 8. And since they're in a comic, saying because comics won't be much of an explanation. He says that he's headed for the Big Easy for answers, and Logan offers to join him, even though he twice reminded Rogue how this is a family matter and Remy has to handle it alone. But then that was before things escalated into resurrections and tithings and so forth, so maybe that was his thought process. Chuck says the X-Men are his family too and doesn't like the idea of a solo expedition, so Rogue says she's going along. Gambit says no at first, but hey, what's he gonna do against a woman that can fly through brick like it was tissue? The Cajun acquiesces, though noting he fully intends to see if his wife is alive, and that Rogue may not like what she learns about him. The issue closes on a dark street, walked by the tithe collector, with narration repeating the warning to small children of the impending tithing time.
Well, some Comics Code-friendly gravy blood aside, this was a decent start to the series. We have a mystery for the main character to solve, a tragedy to drive him, and a shadowy past that may affect how the other X-Men view him when it comes to light. Or it could just turn out to be overblown dramatics. Tune in next time as Gambit returns to his hometown and everyone comments on how he's not good enough for the saucy Southern belle he's with. Okay, that's just going to be me overdubbed with different voices, but hey, I already said I didn't like the guy. I'm the angry spork. Man, have I got issues.